Go ahead and start, Jen.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to the second stop of our 2021 Design Crawl series. I'm Jen Stone with IIDA Oregon Chapter, and we're super excited to have Eliza Balin and Scott Brown with us today from GBD Architects. They're going to give us a tour of their project Campbell Global, which won a Best in Category for Corporate at the 2020 IIDA Design Awards. And before we get started, just please make sure your microphones are muted, but we definitely encourage you to drop any questions you have into the chat throughout the presentation. And if we don't answer the questions in real time, we'll be sure to cover it during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And I want to remind all of our attendees that they're invited to participate in the Design Crawl Passport to win some really great prizes from our generous sponsors. To participate, you'll need to complete the associated page in the passport for today's stop. Participants will earn one raffle entry per completed page. So the more stops you attend and complete, the better your chances are of winning. Completion of the bonus page will give you one additional raffle entry as well. Be sure to enter the passcode for today, which is timber for this stop. And you can email your completed passports to info@iida-or.org and use the subject line Design Crawl Passport. The deadline to submit passports is this Friday by 5 p.m. And we'll put the chat or the passport link in the chat right now. And now I'm going to hand it over to Kate Stewart, our current IIDA president.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. I'd like to take a moment and thank all the generous sponsors that made the Design Crawl possible today. Thank you to our Design Crawl stop sponsors, Source, Dow Tile, and Infinity Drain. Our Ruby level sponsor, Mannington Commercial, Sapphire level sponsors, Matter Contract and Arizona Tile, Topaz level sponsors, Materials Inc., Garrison and Associates, Pacific Mat, Loom and Armstrong Flooring, and our passport sponsors, Herman Miller, Cambria, Willis, and Coror Seal. I also want to thank all of our annual sponsors this year. At the platinum level, GBD Architects, Mohawk Group, Source, and ZGF Architects. At the titanium level, Absolute Resource, and at the cobalt level, Absolute Procurement, Bora Architectures and Interiors, and Solus. Thanks to all of our generous annual sponsors. With that, I'd like to give the floor to this stop sponsor, Brittany McLean, with Source, to introduce herself and say a few words. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, thanks so much. And thank you to the IIDA chapter for putting this design crawl together. I've been looking forward to seeing some of these projects ever since I got the kind of first glimpse at the Design Excellence Award. So really excited for that. Just quickly before we dive in and start the tour, I wanted to introduce myself to those of you who maybe don't know me or Source. I'm Brittany McLean. I'm the Director of Client Services at Source. And we were founded here in Portland and want to serve as a resource for those who are working on commercial construction projects. We have a digital catalog with over 190,000 products from all your favorite brands, many of who are sponsoring this event today, so thank you to them. We want to make it easier to find, sample, and spec the right materials. We also recently launched a same-day sample delivery service to the Portland metro area, so anything you need from tip cards to terrazzo, we've got your back. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or send me your information on the chat and I can follow up with you after the presentation. But again, thank you for putting on this great series and congratulations to the team at GBD for the success of this project.
Thank you, Brittany. And thanks to all our Design Crawl sponsors. With that, we're ready to get started. I'd like to introduce you to our speakers today, Eliza Balin and Scott Brown from GBD Architects. Hi, Scott and Eliza. Please
hello.
Introduce yourself and we can get started with our tour of Campbell Global.
Thank you, Kate. All right. My name is Scott Brown. I am a principal at GBD Architects, and I will leave it at that. Eliza's the star here. Go ahead, Eliza.
Hi, I'm Eliza. I'm an interior designer at GBD Architects. I've been here for about 6.5 years, and Scott and I have done quite a few projects together now. So we're excited to talk about this one. I'm going to share my screen here.
It's worth, yeah, I'd want to mention a thank you to IIDA and the sponsors for kind of getting this adapted version of the design crawl in play. It does feel good to have what has been a long-standing annual event back, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody in person next year for this event for sure. All right, Campbell Global. I want to just give a quick overview of the team, which, even though my picture is there, that is a misrepresentation of the truth. Really, Eliza was the solo performer for this project, and that seems like an unusual set of conditions, because we all know that doing a project as a team is important to doing the best work. Just based on the conditions we were facing at the time we were doing this project, which was obviously pre-COVID, we were so busy, and Eliza is so capable that it was just in the moment she took it on and got it all the way through the finish line. Some other team members, KPFF, had the pleasure of working with Environments on the furniture side. Cushman and Wakefield did both the brokerage and the project management. For those that know Susie Jan and her team, they were involved. And Swinnerton, we've worked with them on several projects recently, and the quality of the outcome here is in large part due to them. Okay. Campbell Global. Hey, I think we all, when we start meeting with clients, we want to understand what they are, and then they tell us what they do, and then you're still a little bit confused as to what it is they do. Fortunately, in this case, that is, it was clear to the casual observer what they do, and that is they're simply just an investment vehicle that is all about timberland. And so, in case you are a high net worth person and want to diversify your portfolio, and that's really their kind of target audience, high net worth and institutions. And if you've got a portfolio that's full of cryptocurrency and stocks and bonds and other real estate and whatever else, you can invest in timberland. And one of their more interesting clients is IKEA. They, Campbell Global, put together the acquisition of the land and used the funding that was provided by IKEA to purchase about 25,000 acres in Southeast. And actually their timberlands are located in Southeastern United States, here in the Northwest, and they also have some holdings in Australia. Okay, and before we go to the next one, Eliza, just a couple of framework things. They were a founding tenant in Umpqua Plaza. They had a lot of the attributes that are kind of fun to see when you show up and meet a client for the first time. It looked like a kind of a 1980s law firm, and you can only think that, well, we could do a little here and it would be a big help. But fortunately, they were very interested in, evolving in a significant way, and they had a mass amount of private offices. They had everything that you might expect from the 90s, the high panels and the large workstations, and some relics that kind of very much dated the space. So it was a really great opportunity. Even though the leadership had been in place for a very long time, they were very geared up to evolve. And some things, there are some legacy type aspects that you'll notice. Go ahead, Eliza.
Yeah.
So located in Wells Fargo, they leased the 32nd floor. Had the benefit of them going from about a floor and a quarter to a full floor. So they're able to get everybody on a single plate. And for those that have had the opportunity to work in Wells Fargo, really great building to plan in. It's pretty darn flexible, and the bay depths are nice. And I actually like the fact that the bay depths are vary. The only kind of challenge with this building, as many people probably know, are the large piers that are in the corners that limit that awesome, more normal Class A office building corner connection to the views that you would normally expect. We compose a space. You'll see right away we do have perimeter offices, so we weren't able to get them to squarely off of that need. The execs are located on the south edge, but otherwise, all of the other private offices are located inboard, and that makes, and in fact, it's still a pretty high proportion of private offices, but it is a significant change from what they once had. We located the off the elevator lobby, and that's one of the attributes of the building I like. The elevator lobby at Wells Fargo is a little bit more of a room and less of a widened corridor. And on each end of it, we opened it up to the view, because obviously on the 32nd floor, I have some pretty commanding things to look at. The northeast corner is developed as an open space, including the break room and some collaboration areas, as well as the waiting for reception. And then directly south of that, we located the more formal conference rooms. The other highlight I would make is, yes, the private offices were large. We got them into a smaller footprint. Similarly with the workstations, we were able to get them to a place that would be more on par with what we would expect in workplace environments. And then also another collaboration space on the west side, just to be for internal purposes. Liza, anything else you want to highlight there?
Otherwise, I think so. I think you pretty much covered it. I'm going to kind of talk about our design process now quickly, and then we'll open up the Matterport and we'll kind of walk everyone through that. So when we start designing, we like to start off with kind of a visioning session where we pin up, 50 to 100 photos of just a variety of different types of spaces and artwork and photography and stuff. These were some of the images that kind of elicited the most positive reactions from their group that we were working with. Some of the key kind of words that came out of that visioning session were, the flexibility of these open types of spaces, some of the transparency through these windows, all the way down corridors to the exterior, and just some of the contrast in texture and materiality and pattern. And again, that collaborative kind of open, flexible type of spaces that they had indicated that they wanted. So we kind of use this visioning session as a starting point and just try to keep some of these priorities in mind as we continue designing. So then we kind of did some information gathering and had a lot of conversations with them, as Scott mentioned, kind of more in depth about what they actually do, what their workplace is like. These were some of the things that jumped out at us as being important to them. They're definitely future and forward thinking. They wanted this new space to attract a lot of new young talent. They have a really strong sustainability story and commitment. They also have a really interesting level of expertise in what they do. They're able to pretty accurately predict the growth of forests and trees and that whole life cycle, and how long it'll take for any single tree to from planting to growth to harvesting to get better investments for their clients. They also are pretty tuned into trends and technological advancements in the industry in terms of what happens when their lumber is harvested. We had kind of a lot of conversations about CLT. They were really intrigued by that. They liked seeing, the wood that's harvested from their forest being used in unique ways, CLT being kind of the main one. And then they also have a strong workplace culture. They've won a couple of awards over the years for being one of the best places to work in Portland, which is really cool. So we wanted to make sure that we're giving their employees a great space to work. So we kind of use those individual things to kind of develop this concept. And like I said, the main one being kind of this idea that they're really, really tuned into technological advancements and sustainability, and CLT kind of being the main one. So we wanted to find a way to use CLT not as a structural element that you would usually see in architecture and construction, but more as like a finish in the space. And so we developed these ideas of creating these canopies to use over their flexible informal meeting spaces and give the feeling of, you know, walking through a forest and having some foliage and greenery overhead and, you know, sunlight shining through. So we use these little structures to help define open collaborative spaces in the ceiling. And frozen there for a second. So these orange zones are kind of where those spaces happen and where we use that CLT. The green kind of shading here that you see is all where the ceiling is open to structure. So it's kind of all that space is really open and flowing and connected. And then the CLT clouds provide some placemaking opportunities. We also wanted to give some relief overhead over the workstation areas. So we did what we called these inverse ACT clouds. Usually, you know, you would see ACT clouds suspended over the workstations and then the perimeters open to the structure. And we actually did the inverse, which I think is kind of a nice, unique way to open up the ceiling overhead. These are just some of the kind of feature light fixtures that we use in the space. This one on top is actually what we use as kind of inspiration. And we worked with Schoolhouse Electric to do some customized fixtures that are similar to this and in a couple different formats and wall sconces and pendants and chandeliers.
Hey, Eliza, while
yeah.
we're on the ceiling, we got a question about what the ceiling height was in the space.
Oh, struck slab to slab. Ooh, off the top of my head, it wasn't super high. I want to say it was maybe like 12.6-ish. The ACT clouds are down at, I think, maybe 9.6. And the CLT clouds are at like 9.6, and same with the ACT throughout the rest of the space. Scott, I'm not sure if you remember anything more specific than that.
I do not.
Those are minutia details from a couple of months ago. What was interesting also, I just want to point out, we started this like mid 2019, and we actually completed this project in the summer of 2020, and we were smack in the middle of construction right when COVID hit. So that was interesting and kind of a challenge to work through that. The main kind of impact that had was lead times for some materials and light fixtures. So we had to make some last minute changes, but I think that we still created the space that we wanted to. So luckily it wasn't any worse, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So
Inga's question is going to be answered here very quickly. Perfect timing.
Sorry, I can't see the chat, so please just keep interrupting me if something else comes up. So there was a lot of collaboration with the GC, with Swinnerton, and the structural consultant KPFF to get these clouds in. These are some of the diagrams that we use. The CLT, you know, we had to cut into smaller panels to be able to get into the freight elevator, which in this building is particularly small, I think. I've definitely worked in buildings that have larger freight elevators. So that was definitely our limiting element into the size of these panels. And you can kind of see this diagram, how those fit together. We worked with KPFF to figure out where these structural supports actually land. And they kind of helped us develop this pretty cool detail, what they call the lap splice, to get the CLT panels to kind of join together in as seamless as possible way. These are 4-inch thick panels, which at the time was the thinnest panel that was in production. Funnily enough, I think maybe right as the project was ending, they were starting to develop thinner CLT panels. But these are really heavy panels, even when they're cut into these smaller kind of puzzle pieces. So it was a very intricate collaborative process to figure out how to piece these together. And there's a lot of MEP components that went into this also. Did I answer the question that was posed?
Yeah, go ahead, Eliza.
No, that I just wanted to make sure that I answered the question that might have popped up.
Yeah, Inga asked how were the CLT clouds supported suspended, was weight a concern? So
definitely a concern. For sure.
Weight was more than a concern. And I think everybody can appreciate that CLT is used as a structural system, not as a finished material. So doing it in this way was super complex. And you might say, well, geez, it could have been done with a normal veneer panel and just kind of had an expressed edge that was that thick. Well, that wasn't authentic to Campbell Global. They wanted to be able to use legitimate products that came from their forests and do it in a way that was honest to the materials that they and their suppliers were marketing. So it is definitely a new thing to use it as a finished material. It comes with a lot of pre-planning and coordination.
Yeah, that's a good point also, that these particular CLT panels are made from trees that are sourced from Campbell Global's forests. So that's a cool story that they're able to tell clients and stuff as they come and see the space, which hopefully will happen here in the near future. They can have people in the space. But yeah, they're supported with steel plates bolted into the structure above, and then a tube steel here supporting each panel. And also, I'll point out in these little diagrams, we do have some vertical supports that do come all the way down. However, the supports that actually hit the floor are not actually supporting the panel itself. It's only being supported from above. And these ones coming all the way down is really just meant to kind of help define the space in as minimal a way as possible, I guess, and also kind of evoke that feeling of tree trunks and kind of walking through the forest.
There's a question about cost, and I'll be a little coy with that, but I can tell you that it was one of the most expensive TIs that we did in recent years. But interestingly, the CLT cost wasn't as big a percentage of the overall cost as you might expect. I mean, to me, it was not negligible, but something a little bit more than negligible. And then we did not pursue sustainability certifications for the project. That was, we always ask that question at the front end, but they did not want to pursue anything. And then I guess that's all the questions for now.
Cool. This is just a quick peek at kind of the materials palette, and you'll kind of see some of this really show up when we fly through the Matterport. So I'm actually just going to pull that up here. Make this full screen. And again, just interrupt me kind of as we're walking through here if you have any questions. This is in the elevator lobby, so you can see we pulled the CLT into that space. It kind of draws you into the reception area down here. You do have a view out these windows. Luckily, when we did these scans, it was a pretty nice day, but it was a little hazy, so it looks a little foggy out there. But one of the other finishes that we introduced in the space kind of as a contrast really to the CLT, and also as another kind of talking point of using wood in kind of like an unexpected, unique way, was doing the Shoshugiban wood paneling on the walls here, which is, I'm sure most of us are familiar. It's a Japanese technique of wood burning. It's a pretty sustainable process. And it just gives a really nice contrast, and again, kind of draws you into the reception area here. We did some vertical reveals with some back painted glass in them, and these are some of those custom light fixtures that we did in black and brass details. We kept the right hand side here, which is the south side, white, just as a nice contrast to the kind of the roughness of the Shoshugiban here. You can see they have all their hand sanitizing stations set up.
Designers love those.
Yeah.
It's worth mentioning that the CLT it's unfinished.
Yes.
And you can start to see, particularly in this view, the checking and the more natural things that can occur with the laminations. And that was just anticipated and kind of a nice part of the character.
Yeah, so when we originally did the space plan, this conference room was actually going to have an operable partition and further kind of open up this area here. That was VE'd for cost purposes. But I also think that that would have given us an entirely extra set of challenges to get the structural support for that operable partition, kind of that coordination above the CLT. So I think that keeping it a stationary relight works just fine. We did their signage wall here. We kind of routed out this recess and then did this laser cut kind of steel signage with a wall wash light above. You can see kind of the panel seams coming together here with the sprinkler heads and the light fixtures. That's kind of the level of coordination that was needed for these panels. The reception desk is interesting. They are not planning on having a full-time receptionist sitting here all the time, but they did want a spot for someone to post up if they are, if there's an important client coming in, you know, there would be someone here to greet them, or if they are hosting an event, that's kind of what this space is for, but it's not kind of a traditional reception desk area that needed a whole lot of storage or any kind of permanent computer. The idea is that someone would just sit here with their laptop as on an as needed basis, really. So this is kind of that open, flexible collaboration area. You can see it's open all the way through to the corner to the break room down here. There's some pretty stellar views to the east. On clear days, you can really see Mount Hood out here, which is really cool. They do have quite a bit of kind of interesting little knickknacks throughout their space. They're not, so when we did this scan, they're obviously not working in the space right now. They're all working from home, but that's what these shelves are intended for. They have some interesting little toy trucks and wooden blocks and heavy equipment and just cool little knickknacks and stuff. And they also have kind of their old vintage signage that they wanted to keep. And so that's gonna go here when they kind of are back working in the space again. This is one of those kind of collaborative areas. We integrated obviously the plants in this planter up here and up in the ceiling. These plants along the lower planters are real. These are faux. We worked with Bonnie with Ambius on the plants, and they came in and took some light levels to figure out if these plants up here would be able to get enough sunlight. And you know, they thought that they probably would, but we also wanted to just be safe and make sure that, you know, we're not going to put a bunch of plants up here that are just going to die really quickly. So we decided to go with the faux ones. The ones in the break room up here on this ledge are real. We thought that these ones would be getting enough sunlight up there. But Ambius provides some services where they come in and water the plants for them on a weekly basis or as needed. So that's a cool service to have.
So we had a question about the flooring.
Yes.
Looks like it's concrete to me, but you can talk more about it.
Yes. The circulation areas is all polished concrete. In this scan, it definitely looks very worn. We didn't add any stain or anything to it. I would say in person it's a little bit cooler. In some areas it's definitely looking very brownish or taupe, but it's definitely gray. There's quite a bit of aggregate in it, and in certain areas there was a lot of, let's see if I can find the spot here, sorry. There's a walker duct system underneath, so there was a lot of cores like this that needed filling. So it's not the cleanest floor, but I think it turned out really nice. It's a nice kind of industrial aspect to the space. So this is the break room here. They really wanted this to be kind of like a communal hub. So we did this big island. The idea here is to make it look like it was just stacks of CLT panels on top of each other. In reality, these are just strips kind of sliced up and stacked together to make it look like that. And then we kind of cantilevered the counter off the end here. They do, watch a lot of sports together. I think when we were talking to them back in 2019, they were talking about how they watch the World Cup and the Olympics together. So that's kind of a big deal for them. So we kind of integrated the TV into the corner here, which, as Scott mentioned, when we were looking at the space plan, the corners have pretty big pilasters. So we're not obscuring any of the view by doing this here. And we're kind of getting that space more useful. Some brass elements that in the hardware that kind of play off the brass of the light fixtures here. They do have a kegerator in their island.
Somebody asked, what's the wall tile?
That wall tile is from Design and Direct Source. It has a nice kind of variety of texture to it, which is really cool. I think it adds that kind of tactile craft kind of element to the space. I apologize that I'm blanking on the actual collection, but it is Design and Direct Source, I believe. So I think those turned out nice. We talked about doing this in blue or green, and it kind of ended up with this kind of pale green, which I think is a really nice accent in the space here.
Was there another tile on the TV wall, or was it the same one?
It's the same tile here, yeah. Some perimeter kind of counter seating here, and we also had some bench seating integrated into the sill over in this reception area. So this whole space is really meant to be super flexible, whether you're going to have an informal meeting, if you want to get out of your workstation and come work up here. It's also pretty large, and they can definitely host kind of all staff meetings and events up here. There was one point where we were talking about kind of having a sliding partition right here to block off the break room a little more. I'm glad we moved away from that, because I think it's nice just keeping everything really open. Scott, anything to add kind of in these, whoops, sorry guys, in these spaces? I'm gonna kind of walk us through the.
No, I think that's good, Eliza. I think that covers it.
So again, interior offices on the left-hand side here, workstations along the perimeter. These are kind of those inverse clouds that I was talking about, where you can see the structure above. We also, see if I can find maybe a better spot to talk about this. So the square lights over are pendants over the workstations, and then we did a similar square light in the private offices. So there's some consistency there, which I think turned out pretty nice. As Scott mentioned, environments was great to work with on all the furniture. I think it all turned out really nice. We did this kind of plywood look for the panel that kind of works with the CLT. This is just another one of those informal collaboration areas. I believe there's a TV going on this wall.
For the square lights, we had a question if where those were from. Are those also schoolhouse?
These ones are, oh my gosh, you guys, I should have written this down. I am blanking. I'm so sorry. I will see if I can dig that up.
And then somebody asked about the furniture scope, which I think you mentioned. You worked with environments.
Yeah, part of the reason, guys, I apologize on these light fixtures is there was some very last minute VEs on some of these due to COVID and like shipping restrictions and stuff. So I think we bounced around a couple options here, and I'm blanking on which one we landed on. We'll walk around down to the other side here. This is that other collaboration zone along the perimeter. We integrated some kind of whiteboard screens here with this tube steel post here. These are Muto chairs. They're pretty cool to sit in. They're really kind of private. A nice little view outside if you want to work. And then in the middle here, we have kind of a collaborative table, and then some more of the Muto chairs at the end. And again, some more planters kind of mixed in. The carpet is all Shaw. This is their Dye Lab collection. Pretty cool carpet tile. I really liked how it turned out. It's kind of a nice blue, green, teal color. And then the carpet tile in these open offices is more of a linear pattern in like a dark black charcoal kind of tone. Any other questions? Just jump in. I'm going to kind of slide down here. It's kind of the same as the other side, although these executive offices are on the perimeter. But I do think that these workstations still get quite a bit of access to daylight since we kept all the office fronts glass here. As we turn the corner back, we did a couple of these small phone rooms. There's one on this corner and then two kind of on the opposite side of the floor plate. They have, you know, a computer monitor that you can go and work in there if you want, or just take a quick phone call. They're not necessarily super acoustically soundproof because we did keep them all as glass, but that was determined that that wasn't super important. And then along the, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Eliza, I kind of forgot it, but we talked about at the beginning of the project that this is proof that if you hang around in the profession long enough, you get to go back to the very same floor of the same building and redo the space that you didn't do well enough earlier in your career. So this space was formerly a PricewaterhouseCoopers space back from the early 90s that I worked on. And it was kind of fun to go back home, if you will. Actually, in the floor plan, even though the space was completely demoed, as a nostalgic nod, the angle that you saw introduced throughout the space is very similar to what was designed into the Pricewaterhouse space 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So these are their 3 conference rooms. We kind of kept, I'm gonna actually kind of zoom over here. We kept a little kind of slot windows here just to give some more relief and visibility into the space from the workstation areas. And the head walls of each room, we did this plywood. So the TVs sit on this wall inside the room. And then we opened up kind of the middle as we did over the workstations here.
It's interesting how that renders. It almost looks like faux painting when we first.
Yeah. These conference rooms are tight, but they had determined that they wanted more kind of flexible, informal meeting spaces. That was more of a priority than having any one particularly large kind of boardroom. You know, they still get a fair amount of people in here, but they're not massive. So
I'd have to say I feel compelled to mention that the CLT is not something I would out and out recommend people grab hold of and think, oh, that's something I want to do in the next project. It is tremendously heavy and requires an immense amount of coordination, and you know, it could be argued that it's not a good use of the material from a sustainability perspective, because it's, you know, it's so much more than it really needs to be. We feel good about it just because it was a nice challenge, and it is, as I mentioned, authentic to the entity that's living within it. But I just, it's not a cautionary tale by any means, because it was fun to work with and a good challenge, but it's not something I'd recommend.
well, and Swinnerton has their own kind of internal CLT team that has been kind of developing some stuff. And like I mentioned, they do have some thinner CLT products now that are intended more to be used as a finish. So I think I'd be intrigued to see how that particular material gets used.
Yeah, totally
maybe
agree.
some other projects. But yes, the 4-inch thick CLT panels were a very special challenge. Any questions or any space anyone wants to look at again? I can kind of to this
Couple more
background.
questions. If anyone has more questions, post them in the chat, but we did have a couple more come through.
Okay.
Did you pursue or achieve any sustainability certifications for this project?
Kate, yeah, Kate, we did not. I had answered that one earlier on.
Oh.
I kind of baked that into another question at the same time.
And the black wood accent walls, are those true Shoshugiban, or is that a paint / stain?
No, this is a true Shoshugi. It's sourced from a company. They're based in Austin. It's called Denver Millwork. I think it turned out really well. They did, you know, when they cut each board, they do have to come in and stain it. The
Touch it
cuts
up.
black, touch it up. Yes, thank you. But yes, it is true Shoshugi. We also did this kind of hidden, this is kind of a coat closet here, but we hid that door, which I think was a good choice. You can see those offset kind of pivots here and just the thin little thumb pole. But yes, it is true Shoshugi.
This one might test your memory. Who was the break room refrigerator manufacturer?
Oh, those are Wolf. Yes. Yeah. I'm like 95% sure we ended up with Wolf ones with some custom door pulls on them. And yeah, we just did them in the white laminate to kind of hide them as best as possible.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then those rugs that you have in the elevator lobby.
Those are Shaw also. They do custom sizes of those and we just edge banded them with leather. So this one matches also. But yeah, it's all the carpet is Shaw.
And then one last question about acoustics. How did you handle acoustics in the space? Was that a concern? Did you do any efforts for the acoustics?
We talked about it. We did not do anything in kind of these open areas. The phone rooms do have some acoustic fabric on the wall, but like I said, they're relight fronts, so they're not super acoustically soundproof. It wasn't a huge concern to them. The walls between the private offices are not, we did kind of look at that. We decided not to go all the way up to structure with those. They are all 6 inches above. So kind of a mid-level, I think, acoustic range, I guess is what I would say. But yeah, other than that, other than just doing like the typical ACT here, there wasn't a huge concern or a huge discussion about acoustics.
It is one thing. It was interesting after the space got completed, the leadership, I mean, this is something we'll all continue to deal with, indicated pretty clearly, had they waited another 9 months before they did their deal, that they probably would have taken half a floor and not a full floor.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask maybe like they probably haven't even gotten a chance to work in it, but what has their client feedback been and the reception to the completed project?
Yeah, you know, they haven't worked in here. They've obviously officially moved in. I think they have a couple people who come in sporadically, but I don't think they've had any clients in this space. You know, they're definitely really excited about it. I think they're looking forward to getting back to actually use it. I think they had their employees all come in and kind of tour it kind of sporadically over the summer. But like I said, it was just a strange construction process because really COVID hit like right smack in the middle of starting construction. So it just luckily it kind of, the timeline wasn't super affected. We just had to make a couple minor changes, and those were mostly, like I said, with the lighting, which I apologize is why I'm blanking on some of the light fixtures, because we had to pull some different options at the last minute, and but I think it all turned out pretty good,
I just
considering.
was wondering if we could go look at the private offices and workstations again
Yes.
one more time. Then maybe you could answer, if you had to pick one design moment in the space that you're the most proud of, what would it be?
Oh gosh. I think I really like how the break room turned out on that corner there with the really nice kind of views to the northeast. I think it's a nice, like, it's going to be a really nice community space for them. I know I would hang out in that space. And I think the finishes came together well, and I like how the plants are kind of incorporated. So I would say that area. Yeah, these are the workstations. They all kind of have these individual lockers. Environments was great to work with. They helped them kind of figure out how much storage everyone would need. So I think everyone has a locker here and then a little ped file, and they're all height adjustable workstations.
I would say, just as kind of a more transformation type statement, I went into this with an assumption for a more old world company and more of an old guard leadership team and structure. I was really impressed as to the trust and their willingness to move the needle on their workplace. I mean, when we toured their space and initially met with them, I kind of thought that we were going to be asked to perform the Southern Plantation, give us all the cornice molding you can give us type of message, and they sure didn't.
Yeah. Great. All right, one more question about the desks. Do those plywood panels on the front of them move up and down with the desk, or is that stationary?
Yes, they do. So I think you can kind of see here this long portion of the L desk is the part that goes up and down. Wonder if there's one that's, so this one, yeah, you can kind of see this one here. It's a little bit higher maybe. Yeah, so you see they're uneven here because this desk is sitting higher. So yes, they go up and down with that part.
Okay, well, there's no other questions, just a lot of praise, saying it's a beautiful project, really well
Thank
done,
you.
and I agree. So Jen, do you want to close this out?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Scott and Eliza. Your project's gorgeous. Thanks for sharing it with us and taking time to put together the presentation. And thank you again to all of our sponsors and everyone who was able to join us on their lunch break today. Quick reminder to fill out your passports and email the completed forms to info@iida-or.org. Use the subject line Design Crawl Passport. And again, participants will earn one raffle entry per completed page, so per stop. If you complete the bonus page, you'll receive one additional raffle entry also. And again, the deadline to submit your passports is this Friday, April 16th by 5 p.m. And again, today's passcode is Timber, so you'll need that to complete it. And tomorrow we're gonna have the third and final stop, which is Vita Design's project, the Rodney. So hopefully you can all make it then. So have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Eliza and Scott. Great
Thank
work.
you.